Yeah. I can change my mind.
Good evening. I'm District Secretary Nancy Gamble Cropfield. It's Tuesday, March 19th, 2013, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Dublin Standard Mental Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Don Benson.
Good evening. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Director Halkett. Here. Director Howard.
Here.
Director Duarte.
Here.
Vice President Montague.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here. Okay, number 4, special announcements and activities.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Okay, public comment. Any blue cards? Nope. Yes, we're moving on to reports.
Yes, President Benson and members of the board, just a couple of things. Reminders, the CASA conference will be held April 24th through 26th. That's a Monday through Wednesday. It's down in Newport. If you're interested in attending, please let Nancy know. We can arrange all your travel or whatever part of your travel and reservations you would like, as well as your registration. Similarly, the Aqua Conference, the Aqua Spring Conference, is being held May 7th through the 10th. That would be a Tuesday through a Friday. That conference is in Sacramento, so the travel and logistics are a little easier to deal with, but nevertheless there's registration and things like that to be coordinated, so let Nancy know. Regarding next week, I'm going to be traveling with my daughter. We're going to be looking at graduate schools for her, so I'll be out of state all next week. Dave Rico will be acting on my behalf that week. I'm thinking of that. Hope you do that. Correspondence to and from the board, there's been none that has come in other than some protests which will be counted as part of the water fleet since your last board meeting.
Okay, great. Committee reports, you've got those on yours, and any agenda management.
I have to be over the city at 7 o'clock to give a presentation, so if there's anything that you need specifically for me to participate in, I'd like to move it up to the top of the agenda.
Okay, so did you have anything in mind? Did you want the closed session?
Yeah, I was thinking the closed sessions.
You were in that, I mean, you're sitting in the DERWA meeting, so your time may be better served on 9C. Somebody else your input.
Okay.
This is good.
What do you think, Bert?
I think it would be good if all 5 of you were here for a discussion of the strategic planning. Is that 9C?
Yeah.
Rich was in the Bureau Board meeting, so I think he can probably adequately fill the rest of the group in, and you've heard all of that, so I would go with this suggestion.
Okay, so we will.
Maybe we'll get through all of them.
Okay. All right, so no agenda management. Approval of the minutes, regular meeting.
We are managing the agenda.
Oh, 9C in front, sorry.
Not 40.
Okay, so 9C goes in front of 9A. Okay, so number 7, approval of the minutes, regular meeting of March 5th, 2013. Do I hear a motion?
Actually, we have 2.
I'll move approval of the regular meeting of March 5th.
Okay, do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. And special meeting of March 12th. Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. All right. Moving on to consent calendar. Items A and B. Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval of A and B.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. And no nays. And now we're on to 9C.
I was going to have a little bit of time, so just give me a half a second to get organized here. At your special meeting last week, we talked about strategic planning, particularly the district's mission statement. Vision statement was as far as we got through. It was a pretty good discussion. You have copies of those mission and vision statements, at least as the board tentatively settled in on them in your agenda package. We're not asking you to approve these. You'll have an opportunity to actually approve those when everything comes together. I have the mission statement up there, what you settled in on last week, and perhaps I would start off with just a quick question. Did I, in fact, capture it correctly? There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of track changes, as you recall. Basically says our mission is to provide reliable water and wastewater services to the communities we serve in a safe, efficient, and environmentally responsible manner. Okay?
That's good.
Okay, so then let me move on to the vision statement, which is a little longer. I won't read this, but we basically settled in on 8 elements of the vision statement. A lot of things, I don't think we dropped anything per se from the originally proposed vision statement. We're carrying a lot of those as placeholders into the goal and into the work plan. So this represents just what was left over. So if you wanted to take a quick look at that, perhaps affirm that we captured your discussion correctly. I guess I could assume that you approved the minutes. Yeah. But just in the event you had any second thoughts.
And when we're all done,
Good enough for now? Okay. So let's start the discussion. The next part of the discussion, we're going to move into values. And you'll know that the district, for the last several years with our strategic plan, has identified a series of core values. I think there are 9 core values currently, and we're proposing this set of core values here. This recommendation is from district staff. One of the things I would change, and it's reflected up here, is I moved sustained financial stability up to second in the list of values. While there's no priority, just natural human tendency is people need priorities from top to bottom, and I think the district certainly needs to sustain its focus on its financial performance in the future years. We're not past bad times entirely yet. So I'd suggest you move that up, and then the next to the last one is a carryover, and staff left it in there because the board had that as a core value, advocate for the community. My feeling in reading that, again, this got a little bit lengthy, so that was really what I was trying to do, shorten it a little bit, but it also seemed like advocating for the community is something we do, not necessarily a value of ours. So
there was criticism of others.
Yeah, there was other folks, some of the other folks that we interviewed, some of the stakeholders made that same observation.
What is that?
Yeah. So anyways, so I have track changes turned on, and we can kind of go through this one at a time, or if, however you want to take the discussion.
Who wants to start?
Well, I was reading some of the other input from other organizations, the school district, and all of it. And they were a little confused as to what we meant by advocate for the community. And so I think about it, maybe I am too. It's not like the ACLU or something.
I think, thinking back, what we meant was there were so many places where we had to stand up and speak for ourselves, or somebody would stomp on us, that we sort of took the bull by the horns, and we thought it was important to advocate for the entire community in cases where someone might, for instance, want to dissolve us and take over parts of us. I think that's where that came from, but I agree, I'm not sure it belongs here,
We can pull, actually, it comes out of my fertile imagination, which I'll take full credit for. And I'm certainly ready for it to go. It was similar to what you just articulated, Georgine. In my opinion, one of the differentiators of DSRSD versus other government agencies, and the way people stereotypically think of government agencies, is that we engage and stand up. But, you know, and I'll use a derisive term, we're not shovel diggers. We don't just take it and go, oh, okay, it doesn't matter because we have our government jobs here. And so I viewed it as a positive aspect of our culture, the way that we think about even some of the items we're discussing in closed session tonight. You know, we don't just cut an easy deal because it's easy to cut. We cut the right deal for the community and we work hard for it. But if it's not a bit, if it's not a value or can't be articulated in the value format, I'm perfectly fine because I don't think we're going to lose that. Dropping this line from this document, it's not going to lose. As long as I'm still around here, we're not going to lose that that characteristic of what.
I think there'd have to be a complete change of board and staff and everybody else to actually take that out of the way we think.
So to make the process easy, since I put it in, I totally I'm going to suggest we remove that. Advice.
Anybody else have comments?
Well, I think the first one, protect public health and the environment, could be construed to be an advocate for the community. So you're kind of double covered there. So
I think we're all right. Belt and suspenders.
Okay. Sustain, and you like the order?
yeah.
Yeah, I feel
So be open and transparent will be after sustain financial responsibility.
They do get hard to order. I mean, if someone's trying to imply priority, or it's hard to do. They're all important things.
Yeah. I don't think we're certainly not implying order. Just people naturally do it. So.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. All right. Any other changes?
Okay, so that looks good. Now let's move to perhaps the meat of the discussion, which would be the goals. Now here I'm not looking for wordsmithing, although we certainly can do this. I'm looking for sort of conceptual level discussion and consensus from the board on these things. These originated not as the goals in the current strategic plan. There's a whole series of goals. These originated in my discussions with each of you individually over the last several months, emails from you, things that you said, that you told me you thought were important. My contribution to this is I took each one of those pieces of input and put it into one of the 7 elements we have in our strategic plan. So I think I got it pretty close, but perhaps I didn't. We can order them around. So you'll see, what I'm trying to say is you'll see a lot of duplication in there, you'll see some contradictions in there, and that's why I'm proposing we go through and start with financial planning, that series of bullets. That will be the be-all and end-all. You can add things to it. Staff may come back and say when we start finalizing this, hey, we think this is a valuable goal to support some other element, etc. So view this as a conceptual starting discussion. I suggest you start up on financial planning.
Okay. So sustainable and solid credit rating for the district.
Well, keep in mind, a lot of these goals, we're spending money. State goal.
If I could, this last time we had a very good discussion. You recall a couple of years ago about this. This is a view. Yes, we are going to be spending money on each one of these. These have financial implications. They have staffing implications, perhaps, etc. So when you're saying yes, that's what we want to do now.
Yes.
We're not taking that as a direction from the board yet. We're taking that as, yes, this is something you would like to do. Staff, please go and identify specifically what you mean by that. Identify the work plan and the resources needed to do that, and then come back to us. And so you can judge whether we can accomplish that within our existing resources or whether we need some additional resources to do that. And there's certainly timely because the budget discussions are coming up in the next couple of months. So think of this as perhaps a little bit, not quite a wish list, because that means you're not considering it at all, but not a commitment to do these things at the present time.
So number 2, identify a plan to reduce, eliminate
the actual temporary infrastructure charge. I think we've accomplished that, or is that we're moving towards that?
Yeah, we're moving to that. You know, our proposal is going to be shortly after you consider the water rates, you know, we'll queue up an item as to what to do with the temporary infrastructure charge. So I think that's in play already, and very likely will be accomplished before the end of this particular fiscal year. But that was, you know, again, that was something that's still being talked about.
A little more color on this restaurant connection thing. Okay, there's urban legends kind of circulating.
Yeah, the issue is and this is not a new issue, but restaurant connection fees at whatever agency you go to are very high because of the organic strength that restaurants contribute to a wastewater treatment plant. That has stymied, in some people's view, the ability of the city to attract restaurants to this particular community. It's a contributing factor. We've done a lot in that regard. We have a payment plan for a commercial account, so people don't have to pay the full connection fee up front as part of, you know, the capital of setting up the business. We've you know, we have different categories of restaurants, sit-down restaurants versus take-out restaurants, to try to, you know, temper that a little bit. But nevertheless, you know, among certain leaders in the community, it's felt that their relatively high connection fees that we have stymie the ability of the city to attract quality restaurants. It's a relative question. You know, you used the word urban legend. One of the things we're doing is looking at what other connection fees for a similar restaurant are, say up at Central San, at Union Sanitary District, at Livermore, at Pleasanton. We don't have the results of that yet. Dave and I will be meeting with the City of Dublin staff probably in April about that. But I do know it's on the radar screen of at least 2 city council members at the City of Dublin. They've asked their staff, and Joni and Chris have asked us to look at it. So we're putting our heads together, seeing what we can do.
What I think is ironic about that is it's very true, but when we do attract a restaurant, we don't keep them because we don't support them. So, you know, they can't, I believe, they can't 100% blame the connection fee on why a restaurant doesn't move here. For instance, Mimi's, next door to Mimi's, Macaroni Grill, is a perfect location to put Olive Garden. It's even designed the same way an Olive Garden would. But the gentleman that owns the property refuses to accept Olive Garden as a tenant. Now that has nothing whatsoever to do with connection fees. So to a certain extent, I get very upset when somebody talks about the restaurant connection fees. Yes, they are high, but we put a plan in place umpty-ump years ago for it to be a payment plan, and that should be working, and I think that's as far as we can stick out our neck. But that's a specific on that particular one.
Even high as a relative, you know, I'm glad they're approaching what they're doing, because high as a relative term.
Yes.
We need to know what, I mean, you know, take a restaurant, you plop it into the 4 neighboring communities, and as long as the math adds up, the problem you put to bed.
It's going to be hard to compare it to Pleasanton because Pleasanton calculates their restaurants by the number of chairs. It's a different way of approaching it.
Yeah, there are different ways, by square footage, by number of seats. Some places will permit a patio seating differently than they'll permit indoor seating. It's
Well, they're not doing it too differently because that's a regional issue, and it better be functionally equivalent, or we have an issue with Pleasanton.
We hope that's the case, but I can't assure you that in fact it is the case.
Well, then,
The old rumor is that the city manager used to keep the calculations for the sewer connection fees in his desk and nobody else looked at it.
Okay, well, that would solve it.
Yeah.
What, should we keep it on? I think we should keep it on.
I think we should keep it too.
It's a legitimate issue that's not going to be resolved. My prediction is before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
Carry
okay.
into next fiscal year.
Yeah, I'd like to say, keep it in there. What operational methodology have we used to calculate the effect it has on our treatment facility? I mean, comparing to what other people do, I never liked that concept. We should be examining and charging what we think it is costing them. We got to be able to back that up with some kind of numbers, whether it's, from an operational standpoint and treating them.
We absolutely do that. Our connection fees are done extremely rigorously, actually probably too rigorously, down to the penny as to what a pound of BOD costs, and we allocate different treatment operations to BOD, to suspended solids, to flow, and it's an extremely rigorous process to go through. The reality, and we don't set them by comparing it to others. Comparing us to others will address this issue of whether we are high or not. It doesn't address the equity within our operation.
Because I know
In any case, we ought to keep it in here, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because I've also had restaurant owners talk to me personally about it. So when they were trying to expand their, restaurant owners don't pay, the margin on restaurants are pretty marginal anyway, but $40,000, $50,000 is to expand is pretty expensive.
Of course, that's notwithstanding the fact that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce ranks restaurants as the #1 industry most likely to go out of business.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, well, we'll keep it on and we'll move on. Any others for under financial planning?
I like the idea of a good pension discussion, we should do periodically. I know that, PERS, it's held and the rates are set way above our pay grade, but it's very important that we understand it and we can actually articulate its problem.
We paid off one pension liability already, right?
OPEB.
Yeah, no, we paid off the side fund. Because the district is in a pension pool for our pension plan, we're not treated as a separate entity, and so if you put excess money into that pool beyond what PERS tells you to do, you're not benefiting necessarily the district, you're benefiting the entire pool. So in fact, that one might be more focused on the other post-employment benefits trust that we'll talk about in another item. That is our trust fund, and any additional contributions to that, it clearly benefits the district. But we're not able to benefit the district in a way that I'm reading this particular line item by making additional retirement contributions to PERS.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea maybe when things are quiet, after the rates have been set later on and stuff, that maybe a workshop on just the whole pension thing and liabilities.
Bring in the actuary and let everybody really.
You're going to get a mini version of that as item 9B.
Yeah, kind of figured, but it's something I think this board ought to just pay more attention to than they have in the past.
Yeah, I believe you should, as elected officials, you should understand it's certainly a hot topic in the newspaper. It's a complicated subject, but it's also somewhat counterintuitive when you think about the way the actuarials view it, and it's really important to understand. You're going to get asked questions by your constituents, by the newspaper, etc. I think a few of you did during the election campaign. It's important that you understand it. So we definitely feel that we need to provide you with that education, give you a chance to answer questions, etc.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any others? Infrastructure? Are we done with financial?
Yeah, I mean, so.
Infrastructure?
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, I'm still back on financial.
Okay.
Can we change the word develop
To study or something, or
to
Where, Georgie?
a 4-year budget officer?
develop a 4-year operating budget to consider?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
No, to Georgine's point, I don't think this body is ready tonight to direct you to go to a 4-year budget, so.
No, I mean, this is not directing us at all. This is just brainstorming ideas for.
Right. So the item in the plan is to see if it's a good idea or not. It's not to do it.
To see if it's feasible,
Yeah, feasible and it's, and all that
and
comes.
all that other stuff.
Consider. Good idea.
Okay. Any others? Okay, now we're on to infrastructure.
I'm on that apple pie.
And again, not each one of these will be a separate goal. We'll package them, just trying to incorporate these ideas. Just trying to get all your ideas out here right now.
That looks good.
Yeah, that's third bullet, we're already talking about diversifying biosolids, what we do. Yeah, I think. I think we can combine these and do some wordsmithing and.
There'll be some consolidation of all of these, or the concepts.
Maybe it's already kind of implied in here, kind of like what we're gonna do with that property we bought on the other side of the fence.
That's part of the reclamation
Restate,
courtyard,
yeah.
yeah, expand that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the only fallow one right now, right?
Pardon?
That's the only fallow property we have in the book, right?
Unless you consider the property immediately next door over here where we have the drought garden.
Yeah, it's kind of half fallow. There's a few plants around.
Oh, no, the long-term plan was, an expansion of this office building into that territory, and that was at a different time.
Yeah, then the recession of 2007 happened to us.
Okay.
Great, anything else?
Don't we need some form that's under infrastructure, some statement regarding the maintenance and operation of the infrastructure itself, of the pipelines, et cetera, something to restate that we're doing?
Yes, absolutely. I might offer it's in the fourth bullet, asset management, maintenance, and habit drive replacement funding.
Okay.
Things like that.
And we're kind of doing that already, right?
Yeah, all right. Well, we're doing it, we're certainly doing it in our collection system, and we're trying to move that same discipline and our thinking into our treatment plant, into our water system, into our JPA assets.
Well, to expand on Ed's point, it drives funding. In other words, we're going to hopefully get a better reserve model out of real data, but it's also driving the actual work. That really good presentation, which I don't think you were on the board, might be a good idea for him to see the asset management presentation.
Yeah.
That really good one that had the sewer videos, and this set of sewers now we clean every 4 years versus every year.
Every.
So we're making a lot better decisions on the collection system based upon that. That's a good presentation. Besides, it's pretty funny. Like 8 people come to do it because it's really cross-disciplinary. So you end up with a couple of guys who clean sewers, and a finance person, and a computer person. It's a good money shot.
That's definitely worthwhile. Maybe we ought to be, when we get down to the actual words, be a little bit more specific. The real asset management, if it's a real asset, it could be dirt. And I know that's not what we mean. We mean everything. And we also mean the pipes, which nobody thinks of as an asset. So
Yeah, that wasn't meant to be real estate in the sense
Yeah.
of real estate. It meant asset management in a real sense of what asset management is.
yes.
If we do asset management correctly, then that drives taking good care of the infrastructure.
Exactly. Okay,
Fun one.
down to resource management, water. Looks good. Any items, questions? It goes on to page 2.
Watching, figure out.
Yep. Have to be
That's a
6.
good point, Pat. For the record, for the viewers, I think we're looking at attachment
6.
6.
to the
3.1, resource management, water.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
9C, attachment 6.
9C.
Yeah, these are all good points to me.
Is your intention for bullet 3, which is the district? I think it is important for us to address the Delta fix. I also think, and this is my broken record, but I think it's also needs to be captured in this document somewhere, that we need to continue to pursue individually and with other agencies a Plan B for if the Delta fix is not.
Yeah, Director, how can I suggest maybe it's diversification, the word you use more than we
Yes.
need to push zone 7 on?
Diversify the portfolio. I've seen the spreadsheet. I mean, they showed it to me just to get to the drawer and
Okay, so diversify.
yeah, and you know, we've captured, bullet 1 talks about that, bullet 3, I mean, you know, we have this in other places, but just, that's an important thing. To me, that's a very important water thing for this upcoming couple of cycles.
Plan B. A and B.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, I mean, in resource management water.
I'll maybe send that.
Next to the last one, does DSRSD want to work on water quality, or are we going to pound on zone 7 for it?
You know, what I would suggest we do, because two of you brought this up as improving water quality, and we certainly understand that that's a laudable goal. We spent a lot of time and effort back about 6 years ago, 7 years ago on water quality. Spent a lot of time looking at technologically what that would entail, what it would cost, what the rate implications would be, and based on that, the board at that time decided not to pursue it as an individual project in DSRSD, but to work cooperatively with Zone 7. So if you still wanted to pursue, improving water quality, I'd suggest we kick it off by dusting off those studies from 6, 7 years ago, at least bringing you up to the current state of the thinking on there, and then, you can certainly think about how to go from there.
That's good for me, because I believe in the go. I mean, that's near and dear to my heart.
I used to be in a hotel
Like-
manager got involved and
You don't like
my priority shifted.
No, I don't like replacing my appliances either.
But I don't want a treatment planner to return out.
Well, if you look at it, a lot of our customers buy bottled water, so they're spending $30, $40, $50 a month on bottled water.
Okay, that's the only comment I have.
Okay. All right. Anybody else for infrastructure or for resource management? Water? Resource management wastewater 3.2 on attachment 6, 9C.
I think we need to add that we need to investigate alternatives to dedicated land disposal.
Yeah, and we put that as a that, or whatever those things were. We did mention it higher up front, so,
Plus that bullet 2.
yeah.
And that's bullet 2 here on this, it's embedded there.
Yeah, I mean, more than that. I mean, I think we're talking about a coalition in this one, and I don't think that's our only alternative. I think we need to investigate our alternatives. This is maybe the best, but I don't want to go down with 21 other agencies doing nothing.
Isn't this master plan our master plan?
The master plan in the second bullet is a master plan that the board adopted about, Dave, help me out,
8 years ago.
8 years ago. That really authorized us to participate in this what we now call this BAB2E project. But
There was a lot of good stuff.
what exactly what you point out, Georgie, that master plan was a DSRSD master plan to find an alternative to our DLD site. Well, BAB2E could be, but it's a big, complicated project involving 26 other agencies.
Yeah, and it'd be wonderful, but
Right.
I'd love to have a plan B.
A plan B, yeah.
And I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, Rich, I saw that as the BABE project rather than as our master plan.
Yeah. We're just getting along with 2 that's 8 years old. I think it's one of the first things I worked on here.
So maybe we need to revisit it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no legal man. I mean, It's been so long, because unlike a water master plan, there's no legal mandate to do it.
It's just good management practice to look at it every 5 or 6 years.
I just think we need to be prepared. Further down the road we get, the less people like dedicated land disposals.
Especially the ones sitting in our neighbor's city.
It still is the cheapest, but we'll see.
Okay, any others for resource management wastewater? Next, 3.2, resource management recycled water, under 9C, attachment 6. Recycled water seems to be a hot topic
The
for
additional resources, we're working on that, we ought to keep working. These other two, that's,
It'd be great if we could figure out a way to get it to the older parts of the community. The front yards might be easy because, well, you'd still have to put conveyance pipes down the middle of the street, but
to like West Dublin.
Yeah, probably one of these bullets is from a conversation between Bert and I, and it sounds like two of us may have had the same conversation, just 2 bullets. And at least my thought was, there's when it first came out, a little creepy, people don't like it, so there's a stigma. So people work very hard to keep it out of, away from houses, parks, golf, landscape.
But that was why we did our big kickoff with it at the sports grounds, to try and
some
Demystify.
So it's at least the thing I wanted to explore. Again, this is it was just, we do have some new subdivisions going in, and that'd be a perfect time to maybe push the boundaries a little bit and maybe dual plumb to the front yard of a new subdivision. I don't even know if it's legal, but
We think we would have to get probably permission from the Department of Health Services to do a pilot program, set it up to be sort of a long-term demonstration program. Find a neighborhood where the piping would be workable, where the neighbors would be amenable to trying.
Do we do recycle? Do we do some of the high-rise stuff? I know there's some bigger, more dense stuff going in. Do we dual plumb that? So for the toilets?
We have not done toilets.
The only toilets we have is a couple or one actually. I think.
Well, the one in the park, one park.
Yeah.
Because
We have
that's an emerging use too. It doesn't have to be used just for wiring. Certainly, like
a dual plumbing you can do.
Yes,
we
we
did
might
toilets.
have a smaller development in Dublin Crossing where that might be possible too. In a condo, 3-story kind of situation.
certainly, yeah, we're looking and find the right location and the right opportunity.
Yeah, I think we have to do it. I think it's, something that we can't ignore, period. And it kind of worries me, well, that's another subject, Margaret Tracy's comments about pulling that off the consent calendar so we could discuss it. I thought she was gone. Oh, where's she?
Okay. 3.4, resource management, environmental stewardship. Questions?
Actually, I think we're doing a pretty good job in this field already with our fuel cells and whatnot. But, just keeping it up is
Have we ever looked at solar for this building or the plant?
We've looked at solar in a big way at the treatment plant. Of course, you have the DLD site out there, and everybody says, oh my God, that's 60 acres, let's put solar out there. Well, there's a couple practical problems with it. One is, it's really a farming operation. We snake hoses and tractors all around there, and we need the sun shining on that property to dry it out. And, wrapping hoses around things is a little, from a practical problem. The other more important problem is the PUC. They're basically, regulations are such that you have to use power you generate on a parcel only on that parcel. You cannot use that power on another parcel. So that means all we can use it for is essentially the Lava facility. We couldn't use the power generated on the DLD for our wastewater treatment
But
facility.
we might be able to do it
Although-
up here to power this building.
No, we've looked at, we have the maintenance building at the treatment plant has photovoltaics on it. We looked at this building at one time, retrofitting it. At that time, didn't seem to make sense, but it's not safe. You should look at it again.
You missed the Tom Ford years. I mean, this was a big time. So.
Because I know PG&E's offering some, is there any PG&E incentives? They're offering a lot of
And I have to
incentives.
say, yeah, we put solar on our house now 18 months ago, and it actually hasn't saved us anything, but it's nice to be part of what somebody thinks is working. But our PG&E bill's the same.
But there is a Senate bill, can't remember the number now, but I think it's still pending where you can use the electricity generated on an adjacent parcel.
That would help.
That would help. You can't do it, all distributed, but it would be good for adjacent.
I would love to be able to generate the power at the treatment plant and then use that to offset the power that we purchase at our water pump stations throughout the community. I mean, that would be the
That'd be
ideal
perfect.
situation.
But even the adjacent.
The utilities are throwing their body across the tracks against those kind of uses.
I think it was Senate Bill 296 or something.
And they're PG&E's having a big party because they just signed their, 75,000th solar customer? So they're having a party.
I know we have them down at East Bay Meadow, the facility.
But your acreage is so much more than ours.
Okay, so now we're on to 4.0, personnel and organization.
I got to offer a comment on the third bullet. I appreciate whoever sent that to me. I can't remember honestly who it was. It didn't say hire a new manager. It was get ready. So I appreciate that.
We keep thinking you're going to take one of your summer retreats and not return.
Freudian slip.
The staffing, the two staffing bullets, the new normal and the maintenance. We used to, it's been probably 6 years now, we used to have a plan for staffing. Like a staffing master plan,
Yeah,
it's been a while since we've
that kind of went by the wayside during
That got-
the dark days.
Right, so we
We need to resurrect
that
that.
would be the vehicle with which to study. That was pre-recession, like 2 years. It still exists.
Yeah, it's, I don't think,
It'd probably be kind of a funny read.
I don't think any of you five would be ready to go back to the level of staffing.
No. I'm not saying we want staffing in the plan, but I'm saying we haven't revisited staffing in a formal way since recession hit.
Implementing
DSRSD.
reform in healthcare, I think will just be driven by the law. Just be doing what we're told to do.
You took a little step
Yeah.
last time with the pension reform, is how we're going to incorporate that into new hires. You're right. Healthcare is an emerging topic. Mary and I have been trading a couple emails just this week about that. So there's going to be more and more as the next year and a half or 2 years go by.
We'll be doing those by necessity.
Consider earlier, we have a 5-year plan for labor agreements, right? So that's kind of already been done. So we should stay maintained.
It's interesting. Mr. Haggerty pulled me aside someday last week, and we talked a little bit about the Zone 7 meeting, and he said if he was an employee of the county, he'd be extremely offended by what Zone 7 said in their presentation about employees, which was something similar to what we're saying, achieve maximum productivity from staff to keep personnel count as low as possible. In other words, you're not working hard enough for what you make, you need to do more, and we're going to cut your pay too. And I hadn't ever looked at it that way, but that's from a board perspective, that's a decent statement, but I don't know, maybe I'm being too sensitive to, we've battled morale and I don't want to make it any worse.
Yeah, I don't think I'd read that one as a separate. It's part and parcel with, look at the staffing, especially post-recession, and make sure we have adequate staff to take care of the this thing to take care of.
I think that's really right.
Yeah, you can also look at it in the form of, when you want to increase productivity, that could mean providing the tools to increase productivity. And so it's kind of a commitment to
Usually
provide
it's
the
increasing
employees
morale.
with the tools they need to do a more efficient job. We generally think of it as computerized kind of stuff nowadays, but it could be anything.
Well, I think overall, we've done a pretty decent job of trying to keep up with what's going on. We've gotten all the little toys and the things for out in the DLD, and they're all having fun with that.
Well, that's a good example, Georgine, of, and Pat, what you're saying of tools. The board approved us buying a dredge, buying a tractor, so we've actually been able, I believe, to improve our productivity in a sense that we're getting the same job done with our existing employees in a much more efficient way than we were with hiring a contractor to do that work. So we did increase productivity as a result of buying the tractors and the dredges and things like that.
How about continuing to achieve maximum productivity
Where are you?
and to maintain
Right there?
the one below which you
Oh.
increase productivity?
Or maybe just maintain.
Maintain.
Yeah, well,
I don't
achieve.
think, none of us want to affect morale. I mean, and I would hope that our staff would feel that we aren't, being overly critical or anything, but you could go back and always say there's always room for improvement, always. And when we say that we want to achieve or maintain maximum productivity, it's human nature that sometimes we take things for granted, and it shouldn't be taken as a personal affront. The larger the organization, there's always going to be a percentage of persons that are going to be very overly sensitive to that. But that our responsibility as a board member means that we need to maintain that environment of wanting the best for them and the best for the ratepayers, which means an efficiently operating staff. We're just trying to help them do that.
How about maintain an efficiently productive? Because I think maximum productivity, we actually don't need to change any words at all. We just need to be aware that it's possible somebody could look at it that way. I never have. That statement has been around in our culture for a long time. It was very surprising to hear him say that about the Zone 7 presentation. I didn't even take it that way when Jill presented it. Again, my only concern is that we just need to be aware of it and come up with a better way to actually write it down. But we don't need to do any of it now.
But I think, for me, it's like to keep personnel count as low as possible. That's a little... That's kind of a direct hit. I mean, I think there's just another positive way we could say it. I mean, we're on to positive times. We want to
keep human resources streamlined.
but maximum productivity or more efficient a high level.
High levels, but
I would say maintain a high level of productivity.
yeah, good words.
Because you want your staff to be able to feel empowered as they appreciated as they go through and say they go on for a degree or they look for personal development to become more efficient at the district, either through classes, through outside work that they're doing. But I think we all know that the staff has done miracles with less. So, okay, anything else?
what's the goal? Yeah, is there a goal there? Or just other than keep up with, aware of?
Yeah, I can't remember, it's been a while now since, I can't remember who gave that to me, but it was along the lines of, gosh, there's a lot of news stories and issues out there. We should be aware of the trends and what's going on, stay abreast.
I think most of us get things from Aqua and CASA and Special Districts Association. Anybody else who can send out an email?
Stay abreast.
I mean, I kind of read those two bullets together. I mean, it's a pretty negative, and it ties back to employee morale. It's a pretty, and our morale, frankly. When times are bad, the level of negativity goes up, and it gets aimed at the people who may have to defend themselves. Well, it's just for us to. I know you have a hard stop. Can I jump over to something? I don't know, Georgie wants me to move on.
Sure.
So the governance, kind of like the other, kind of like the 4-year budget. I think this is written too prescriptively, revise the committee system. The one thing I would like to, as a body, explore is the way we do our business.
Yeah.
The committee system is very old and it served us very well, and we're doing a lot of work as we're expanding, and a lot of technical work as we're expanding. I think it's kind of have a good discussion amongst us, what goes to committee, maybe what goes right to the board, and I just wanted to, so I'm not trying, these two came from me, and I'm not trying to change anything with this document, but that's kind of the thought process.
I strongly agree with you.
And I agree
I
too.
think we look at that.
Yeah. I think, what do you think? Anybody else have comments on that?
Well,
Well, I don't know, and we've been really criticized for it because it looks as if we aren't discussing things in public, and yet I feel much more informed than I ever was serving on the city council. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm older and wiser. But, the city council does not, our city council, and I don't think San Ramon's either, operates on a committee system, and you have to discuss everything at a meeting. And
There's some.
There's
I
ways to
had
do
questions that I never asked, truly.
And their meetings are ridiculous. I mean, a 3-hour meeting is not a productive meeting. The third hour of a 3-hour meeting, you might as well not be there. The school board kind of operates the same way. So I'm still not advocating that. Just something different.
I'm not against looking at it,
Yeah,
not at all.
maybe a quarterly system or something like that.
Oh, we'll see. We're not solving.
Yeah, I know, not solving.
Stop solving.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to have to leave, but I have to go give the presentation about Mr. Heberty.
Nice article. Okay, well, thank you for your input.
Sure.
All right, I want to go back up real quick, and it says the economy in general and the tension as created between our employees and our customers. Do we still need that?
Well, here again, it's just kind of a keep aware of thing. It kind of goes with the word above it, I think. Just something.
It just sounds so negative.
But this is not, these words aren't going to make it into a document. These are just thoughts.
They're just thoughts, and we're going to take these
Right.
words and build some goals on it.
I just think it's a little,
Again, these words aren't going into a document. But we do need to keep eye. I mean, public employees are just getting slaughtered in the press, and we as a board have a large body of public employees that work for us. So I want to.
It's not going to stop for a while.
It's not going to stop for a while.
No.
It won't stop until the economy turns around completely. But yes, your point.
I think but we've made great strides, and I think we need to start emphasizing that, because we've made great strides with our employees, and we've also made great strides with the way we've handled our money, and with the way, we've really turned things around. So I just think it could be crafted a little bit more positive for both.
I think the general manager's heard you.
Yeah, I noted, it sounds negative as written.
Yeah. And then the risk scenario planning, emergency response needs to be dusted off. Could that be combined with the emergency preparedness?
Yeah, those are two separate comments from two separate people, the same topic.
Okay. All right, governance 5.0, governance, management, administration. Anything else under that? 6.0, partnerships, Tri-Valley utility coordination and consolidation. Anything on that?
That's all about that.
Public affairs, number 7.0.
Just one thing, and that is some of our input we got from others likes the idea of, it's not just public affairs, it's also customer service. You know, to be kind of in the same level, the same.
But don't you have a customer?
Customers.
Yeah, he's looking at customer. Yeah, and that.
Yeah,
he has
with developers.
points. He has points, right.
Well, one thing that I have several items actually under this one, but I'm going to try to summarize this. More public education. You know, we cut the education program out, and I was at a dinner the other night, and 2 council folks bended my ear about that. So I know we have the James Conan, scholarship program, but one council member mentioned to me that we don't have candidate kids at Dublin High. Needs to maybe be more, I don't know, maybe we could outreach to Dublin High and try to get more sewer and maybe water treatment type education to them at the middle school and at the high school, and maybe encourage them to participate more in the science fairs. I think these are the kids of our future. I think it's time that,
We did a lot of that, you cut it out.
I know.
When we were on the board, we did a lot of it.
But what's the purpose? I know Zone 7 does it, but they're spread among several different groups. And I'm thinking that as part of our education program, I think it's a BMP, isn't it? Part of our education? It's a CUWCC, BMP?
Yes.
They don't really prescribe exactly how you have to. It's up to you, change.
But launching a new website, I think there's a lot more we could do to get and possibly go to more, just maybe 1 or 2 festivals. I noticed we didn't have somebody came up to me during, I manned the booth at the Valley Children's Museum, and I still had my badge on from the parade and for DSRSD, and somebody asked me, they said, well, how come you guys don't have a booth here? You have why? The city, it's very inexpensive, but I think for maybe once or twice a year, I think we need to have a booth. We need to be out there with our folks. I've also heard from other people in the community, it's like, why is everybody else here, but why aren't we here? I'm certainly willing to work a booth like that, I know. And especially in Dublin.
Cal High is in our district, as is Doherty High School.
Yeah, I would put the high schools.
The high schools.
Because,
Sorry. But anyway, so those are...
Yeah, no, public outreach is good. It got severely, at least that Project Web, we had the grade school, we had all that.
Yeah, I know Project
And
Web.
it didn't survive the 2007 recession. It has many things that didn't survive. And we should look at bringing some back. We're just going to have to be very careful what becomes the new normal.
But I think many
and we're gonna have to
organizations...
For our organizations. We're going to have to scrutinize
Understand.
the costs as they come back up, and some of this stuff may come back onto the P&L. We're going to have to scrutinize the items, cost benefit it, and do it carefully, because the first $2,000 is easy, the third, $5,000 is easy, and then pretty soon you start adding up and it becomes more money. So we're just going to, I'm saying this in support of this stuff, we're just going to be clear-eyed and look at it carefully before it comes back in.
Absolutely. But I think it's something that is outreach into our community. It's very beneficial.
I'm not disputing that.
I understand that.
This is at least one board member that'll ask lots of hard questions before you start bringing new board. Because the other thing is, it was there, it went away. A horrible thing to do in any community is then to bring it back to have it go away again. Whipsaw on the communities also sitting in the guard against. So.
But by us not being present, it was so evident this past weekend at the Dublin Festival. It was actually kind of embarrassed.
Well, and our water still comes out of the pipes, and people, they flush the toilet, the waste goes into the hill. Our rates are competitive with all our neighbors.
But we should have had a booth there. And we should. So anyway, that's the details. But I just think we should do a few more things, public, outreach in our community.
Okay,
I think you've gotten through all 7 of them. What we'll do at staff level is start writing more, goal-like statements revolving around your input, and probably work with a combination of the committees and the board that comes back to you. And once we have the goals identified, start identifying what resources we need for the budget process that's going to be going on over the next 6 or 8 weeks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that was good.
All right.
All right, so now we're back on track. We're going to do 9AB or 9A. So,
9A, President Benson, that's the
Yep.
one that
this is the third of 4 regularly scheduled board meetings. Between the February 5th meeting where the board proposed changes to the water rates and charges, and the April 16th public hearing wherein the board will decide exactly what those changes will be to the water rates and charges. If you'd like to participate in the rate setting process, you can learn all about the rate study, the proposed changes, and what they mean to you on our website, www.dsrsd.com. You will also have one more opportunity to interact with the board, ask questions, get clarifications, and or make statements. That's one more meeting, and that's in April. You will also, let's see, if there's anyone in the audience tonight who would like to address the board, please fill out a blue card on the small table. And obviously we don't have anybody. Seeing no one, we will move on to the next agenda, but I want to point out that this issue will be on the agendas for the next regular board meeting in the event there's somebody in our viewing audience who wishes to ask questions, get clarifications, or simply make statements on the proposed rate changes to our rates and charges. We welcome your participation, and you have one more opportunity at a next regularly scheduled board meeting on April 2nd at 6 p.m. And now we're on to 9B.
Good evening, President Benson and members of the board. The district is required to update its actuarial study for other post-employment benefits, which we call OPEB, every 2 years. One of the factors in the study is the interest rate used for the investments in the trust. When the district initially established the trust, there was only one investment option. 2 years ago, PERS developed 3 options, and the district was required to choose one of these. Strategy 1, as shown in the board materials, was chosen. As shown in the materials as well, most other agencies are also using Strategy 1. As of March 11th, the district's OPEB trust had a value of $15.8 million. The last actuarial study projected assets of $14.6 million in June 2013. Based upon the estimates in that study, the district's OPEB obligation is currently 89% funded. PERS does not require board action for the decision on the investment strategy, but because the decision impacts both budgets and rates, I'm seeking direction on whether the decision should continue to be made by the treasurer or whether the board desires a different process to be followed in making this decision.
Okay. Discussion? Are we fine with the current?
Can you explain this? Actually, I'm looking at one.
I can explain everything but the one line item that seems to have been a stray row that didn't get hidden.
Oh.
And that's that estimated contributions to server. That's what they call the PERS trust that the funds are held in. And in preparing this item, there were some rows that were hidden, and so that row is not really relevant to the discussion. So I apologize for that. It is rather confusing. This chart is also summarized on the summary in REC, but basically it shows you that originally PERS invested the OPEB trust's assets the same way they did the pension assets, and they used a 7.75% discount rate, which is also the interest rate that they anticipate will be earned on the monies over long periods of time. At the time that they then developed the 3 strategies, all of the rates and budgets had been set using that a 7.75% assumption. So when we were required to select one of these options, we selected the strategy 1, which was the closest to the prior investment strategy. What this is intended to show is that, of course, as you get more conservative in your portfolio, your costs go up. So you would have to increase your contributions into the OPEB trust if you were to select a more conservative investment strategy. Based on the fact that the current funding is at 89%, which I think is a really solid number to be at, and barring any, disastrous investment returns like we had during the market crash, I'd recommend that we stay with strategy 1 at least for the next 2 years.
Well, I'm going to suggest that we leave it up to you. I just wanted to understand. I'm not an actuarial, that's for sure, so get it.
So are they actually actually offering 3 different portfolios, each of which they use a different discount rate?
Yes. So
there are physically different investments.
They are physically different investments, and basically when we do the actuarial study, you have to tell the actuary which investment pool you will have your money in, and then they will calculate all of the current actuarial liabilities. The study that I presented in here is the one we did 2 years ago. Really is just to show you the magnitude of the changes that you would be looking at if we selected a different investment strategy.
So, in other words,
and the contribution as a percent of payroll is our contribution?
This is the district's contribution.
There's no employee contribution for that, right?
Just for the retirement portion, yes. So, no, the employees do not contribute.
so, I mean, there's a problem. It's possible that when PERS invests money in any of these strategies, they could come up short.
Correct.
So even if we went the most conservative strategy 3, that number could just as likely, I don't know if it's likely, it's probably more conservative, but it could come up short just as strategy 1.
Well, yeah, I mean, all the discount rates are, this is wrong. The relationship between real returns and the discount rates using these models is tenuous for all 3 of these. That's the elephant in the room with the larger pension discussion that's way above our pay grade that is going on statewide and nationwide.
It's conceptually the same discussion you're having, fairly small dollars here associated with this whole trust.
Yeah. And I see where you're going, and I can support that. I mean, if it was a choice to get a discount rate, it's kind of a false choice, because even the 6.36 is likely not close enough to what we'll really do. So
PERS believes, take that for the statement as it is. They
Well,
believe they can get 7.5.
we saw what they did with under non-OPEB. That it was a political decision when they went to 7.25, whatever they went to this recently.
Because they don't want to force us to pay in more money. And there's some big players, there's some big politics.
I think based on the fact that you can reevaluate this every 2 years, it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, that's
You
what I
can
wanted to
certainly
add.
look at your funding status each time this comes up, and of course that is one of the ways we develop whatever recommendation we would make to you if you wanted to come back and make the recommendation every 2 years.
What strategy was used for the math behind the rate study we currently have on the street?
The current strategy 1. And as you know, there's all these incremental things that happen based on these decisions. So we don't do all the rate studies at one time. We don't do we do the budgets at different times. We do the rate studies. And so the opportunity to adjust the thinking, takes place, and then we incorporate those into the
Yeah, I
next
wouldn't
set.
mind that, and this dollar value isn't such that it would pull the study off. The rate study could easily forgive either one of these dollar values.
And this is overall payroll, not
Right.
just for the water fund, so it's a lower impact to the water fund.
Say you take strategy 1, in 2 years from now, you are underfunding on ours. Let's see, goes up, goes down. Say we decide to change to another strategy, does our account have to be sort of squared up first? Or you just say, okay, change our investments from this portfolio to that?
Yes, they would change the investments, and then what the actuary does is they look at what is the value of your investment on this day, and then as they do the forward-looking projections, they would estimate only earning the smaller amount of interest.
Same thing as me swapping my mutual fund
Yes,
to another. I take the value of what it is on the day of swap.
Right.
And it goes into the portfolio.
you're not required to make, I guess, a lump sum true-up contribution. You would just simply change the rate that you would be paying in on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and then the only difference between you swapping out your mutual funds and us changing strategies, when we change strategies, there's a guy in the room who adds up all the math and says, well, good choice, but you're going to have 89% of the money you need someday in the future. 89% funding is fantastic at this college, so
Yeah.
I also can support her strategy. I'd like to revisit this though every couple of years. I mean, I would like this not to be still a staff decision, so I'm glad that you bring this to us. When this comes up, I'd like to see it again.
We can certainly bring it back to the board each time we make a decision.
Do you want to see a yearly?
No, because one of the choice of years.
Okay. But you want to look at a status, just like some number information?
We have a lot of the financial statements every year that have a little bit of it, so.
Okay. So
I feel like I have sufficient information, but I do want to make sure that we continue.
Yeah, the actuarial study is actually done for 2 years, so the decision would be for a 2-year period.
All right, good. Ed? Director Dorje, sorry. All right, so we need to do a motion?
You don't need a motion.
Okay.
The do nothing option, which I think is where you settled in, and that's how our financial officer made the decision. And I think we received direction that we'd like to review this a couple of years ago.
When this decision comes due every time, the minutes should reflect it. Love to see a chart of success.
I think the motion is the one that is up and up.
Or if you want to go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Policy.
I want you to
Okay,
have meetings.
so we're done with those. Board member items, starting with Director Howard.
Let's see, can't think of anything offhand relates to the board.
Director Duarte? Okay, I have a couple things. First off, I'd like to thank staff for the parade and getting everybody ready. Sue and Joyce and Renee and Oscar. There was one of the
Ken
IT
Woofter.
Pardon?
Ken Woofter.
Ken Woofter, and the gentleman who drove the truck. But we had bubbles. It was really cute.
Yeah, it's good.
It was fun. We had, we missed Georgine. I know she walked with somebody else, but also, so I'd like to thank staff. One thing I was noticing that, and this is just simply me, but we weren't able to give anything away. I know Dublin was giving a bunch of stuff away, a lot of different groups. So maybe next year if we could give a couple things, give something away that was maybe related to the City of Dublin gave away jump ropes, and their big thing right now is Healthy City. So maybe we could be in concert with what their theme is and maybe do something.
We've done it before.
We have done in the past handouts all the way from candy and all sorts of stuff. Staff did kind of a program assessment a couple years ago on that, and really found that so much of the stuff ended up on the
street, and so there's kind of pollution, and we heard a little bit from the city on that. And also, it just takes a long time, and and you get people kind of slow you down and want to hug Oscar, and so that we did look at it. We can look at it again.
Well, it just made us look, from my standpoint, watching the city of Dublin give out, jump ropes and things like that. It just, if we could have been in concert with something, would have been, something little, nothing big, but I just thought it would have been a nice city. We're America's, we're an all-American city, and where's DSRSD in this all-American city?
Actually, the year that I was walking in that and giving away stuff, it really gets to be a job. It's hard to do. I mean, it slows you way down, and you start falling way behind the group. And all little kids, there's so many kids, you gotta run up, and now you're sliding other kids. It's really tricky. It's a very hard thing to do.
Well, it seemed to work this time. So I was just kind of, as me, this is the world according to Dawn.
Maybe I was too conscientious in trying to give every little kid something. I just got way behind the truck. I thought, man, I'm never doing that again.
And then the other thing was, they had a great fun run. The festival was double. And I was just wondering if there's something we could do in the future, maybe partner with Zone 7 and maybe give out some water or provide water containers. I noticed they didn't give out bottled water this year. They gave out cups, little cups with water as people were coming across the line. So just like a little PR for us. And I think if we had a booth, I think some people asked about rates. It might have been a really good thing to have a booth to, and given the fact that we're going through a rate increase right now, it would have been nice to have staff and even board members like us be there and answer questions. Maybe we'd get nothing, but I think it would have been a nicety for just, And the education, like I said, I got asked about education programs in the schools by some of our constituents and some council members. But one idea was to possibly do a rose garden dedication to Tom McCormick. So that was one question. I know Bert and I both got asked that. And maybe do something. Tom McCormick, as we all know, was a board member here and also on the city council. His wife was on city council as well. So maybe there's some collaboration that the board, we could authorize staff to be a partner with the city of Dublin.
We're talking to the city. The city is thinking about doing something to honor Tom regarding the rose garden at Emerald Glen Park, rededicating that in some way. So yeah, that was one of the, we named the drought garden next door in Tom's honor, but that was at a time when we were planning to do some capital improvements there and, have some facilities there for the public. Those fell by the wayside in the recession, so it never happened. So this might be a good alternative.
So if we could go, I know the council members are excited, are excited about it. So I think, Tom's still here, so it would be maybe a nice way to honor him.
Absolutely.
And I think he would possibly be able to come. So, anyway, that's it for me.
All right.
Anything else? Okay, so now we're going to be going into closed session. At this time, the board will be going into closed session for 2 closed session items listed on the agenda. The first item is item A, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Property, water supply, agency negotiators, Bert Mahalchek, General Manager, David Requa, Assistant General Manager and District Engineer, Lori Rose, Financial Services Manager, Dan Gallagher, Operations Manager, and Carl P.A. Nelson, General Counsel. Negotiating parties, City of Pleasanton, under negotiation, terms and conditions. Item number B, conference involving a joint powers agency pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.96, DSRSD, EV Mud, Recycled Water Authority, aka DERWA. Discussion will concern conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Property water supply contract negotiating parties, City of Pleasanton and Jerwa. Under negotiation, price and terms, local agency representatives of Joint Powers Agency Board, Director Halkert, Director Vice President Von Heater Leopold, other attendees, Bert Mahalchuk, General Manager, Dave Requa, Assistant General Manager, District Engineer, Lori Rose, Financial Services Manager, Dan Gallagher, Operations Manager, Carl P.A. Nelson, General Counsel. While this board meeting will continue, this broadcast will be stopped at this time because it is anticipated there will be no report from closed session. If there is a report from closed session, it will be announced in open session at the end of this board meeting. If you're interested in what report out, if any, was made to you, you can contact the District Secretary, Nancy Hatfield, during the regular district business hours for the information. We hope you have a nice evening. Thank you.
I'll get back.